front wheel first, back wheel first, or both wheels at the same time. Is any one of those landing techniques more correct than the other? And how do some riders land so smoothly? This video is all about learning how to land. Today, we'll be looking at what we need to do to land jumps and drops smoothly, and we'll be comparing the advantages and disadvantages of landing front wheel first versus back wheel or both wheels at the same time. Now, before we look at how to land smoothly, it may be easier to understand if we look at what makes a landing feel harsh. A flat landing is the best example. There's nothing to help redirect the rider's downward momentum, which comes to a sudden stop. The more abrupt this transition happens, the harsher the landing will feel. The opposite of a flat landing is a steep transition, like the ones you find on dirt jumps or in a skate park. A steep transition helps redirect the rider, and their downwards momentum is slowed down much more gradually. The best practice to land smoothly is to match the slope of the landing transition. I'll illustrate this point by using some brightly colored golf balls. The closer we can get to matching the transition of the ramp, the less the ball bounces. On the other hand, the more perpendicular the ball lands on the transition, the bigger the bounce. Landing smoothly on a bike is a very similar story. So here are a few tips to land smoothly when you can match the transition. Aim to land on the back side of the knuckle as high up on the landing as possible. The knuckle is where the top of the jump meets the downslope and sort of resembles the knuckle on your hand. The higher up on the transition we land, the more time we have to absorb the impact. On larger transitions, there is plenty of room to work with. Landing with both wheels at the same time is often the best and safest method. However, on smaller jumps, landing with both wheels on the transition at the same time is not always possible. In those situations, we need to maximize the small transition we have available. By landing front wheel first, we can land earlier and begin to absorb the impact sooner. As a result, we have more time to set up for the next feature. While it is a more advanced maneuver, landing front wheel first gives us more precision and better control in some situations. There are some situations where we cannot match the transition, or there is no transition at all. If you can't draw a straight line from the takeoff to the landing, matching the transition is not possible. If there is a downslope, landing with both wheels at the same time will give us the most stable platform. With a full suspension bike, the impact is distributed through both the shocks and tires at the same time. This can be handy when trying to avoid pinch flats, but do notice the impact is still being absorbed mostly with our legs. In the absence of a downslope, landing back wheel first will give you the most impact absorbing potential, as it puts you in a more natural position to absorb the impact with your legs. However, it is easy to lose balance side to side or even loop out. Landing back wheel first can be one of the most dangerous ways to land if you're not careful. I find myself landing with both wheels at the same time for any drop under 2 to 3 feet of height. I personally hate landing flat, so let's talk to somebody who's made a whole career out of doing drops to flat.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lanowski, and I'm here with some tips on how to do drops to flat. Now, you're not always gonna have a perfect landing. When you have good speed and a downslope, things can go really smooth, but when you're landing on flat, there's a few things that you could do to make your landing as soft as possible. So I would approach this drop just as I would any other drop. You wanna fly in the air with your body in a neutral position. But when you're landing on a downslope, you're gonna use your arms and your legs to point the bike a little bit down to match it. When you're landing on flat, you wanna bend your elbows and bring your handlebars to your chest, and you wanna extend your legs down. So you'll see me pushing my legs straight down. That's gonna allow me to get in more of a vertical position. And then as my back wheel touches down, I'm absorbing it with my legs, and it's gonna feel like your handlebars wanna rip out of your hands. So you're hanging on to those and slowly letting them pull away from you, and you're using that energy to make your landing as soft as possible. If you do those tips, you'll be able to land to flat, nice and smooth, and it'll keep you going down the trail.
Thanks for the tips, Jeff. Now let's talk about bike setup. As with any skill we discuss, maximizing our range of movement will make it easier to learn. This means lowering our seat. I know some of you may be groaning because you don't have a dropper post. but let me give you an analogy. You wouldn't jump off a picnic table and land with your legs straight, would you? Your legs are the most important part about absorbing the impact. If you don't have a dropper post, you can always lower your seat the old-fashioned way, either with a quick release or an Allen key. A good way to practice back wheel or two-wheel landings is by riding off a ledge. The key is to focus on absorbing the impact as gently as possible with your legs. The quieter you can land, the better. When landing with two wheels at the same time, your weight should be centered over the bottom bracket. You should almost be able to land with no hands on the handlebars. Learning to land front wheel first may be a bit more intimidating. I'd recommend practicing on a small jump that you're comfortable with. Approach the jump with enough speed that you can get your front wheel to land past the knuckle. When your front wheel touches the ground, weight your front wheel while keeping your legs and hips bent. Keep your pedals unweighted until your back wheel has passed the knuckle. If you let your back wheel drop too soon, you'll feel it hang up. That's called casing. Now you're probably wondering, why is it called casing? Well, the term originated from dirt biking. When a rider would come up short on a jump, their suspension would compress and the bike's crankcase would hit the ground, hence why it's called casing. If you continue to case jump, besides for needing a lawyer, you may want to practice back wheel lifts in the parking lot. Focus on holding that back wheel up. This will get you familiar with weighting your front wheel. Alright, now let's go take a look at a few real-life scenarios to see when we should apply these different landing techniques. In this situation, we have two jumps that are pretty close together. I find that landing front wheel first allows me to get set up sooner for the next jump. There is enough space where you could land with both wheels at the same time, but as you can see, my front wheel is only touching the ground a few feet before the next jump. In this situation, the rollers are spaced much too tightly and landing front wheel first is the only suitable option. Okay, so there are a few more options, but landing the manual is definitely a little beyond the scope of this video. In this situation, it's easy to match the transition, which is long enough where we can easily land with both wheels at the same time. Though here again, I prefer to land with my front wheel first as it allows me to get on the brakes sooner and set up for the turn, which is just out of frame. Here we have a sizable drop with an awkwardly placed rock. This rock has a decent transition, but it's both short and steep. For that reason, landing front wheel first is my best option if I want to land smoothly. But this is a super risky move. If I were to weight my front wheel too much, it would be pretty easy to go over the bars. Notice that I have to give it a little hop to match the transition. That allows me to reach the landing without going any faster. The slower you go, the steeper the angle. Had I gone any faster, my angle of approach would have been too shallow to match this transition. These are just some of the things we should consider when learning how to land smoothly. If you have not already, be sure to check out my how to jump and how to drop videos. Those videos cover many of the other aspects that I left out from this video. I'll leave a link to those videos as well as a link to Jeff Lanowski's channel in the description below. As always, my name is Phil Metz. Thanks for playing bikes with me today, and I'll see you guys next time.